Hi, I'm Steve Schoenberg and I'm a Democrat. I am running for president and I have all the answers for all the problems that plague the nation today, tomorrow, and for. Wait a minute. I'm Steve Schoenberg and I'm a Republican running for president and I have all the answers to all the questions that will ever play. All right, I can't keep it up anymore. I'm Steve Schoenberg and I'm running for president. I'm running for president in the Common Sense Party, and the Common Sense Party knows that as one man, I don't have all the answers. Heck, I'm not even really supposed to. I'm a social studies teacher in Dutchess County, New York. I teach middle school students primarily how to understand and interact with their government. 11 through 13-year-old students who figure out the way this country is supposed to work more than any politicians I've really seen operate throughout my lifetime. The problem with the presidency in the United States today, or the office of the presidency, I should say, and we're seeing this manifest in the election cycle that we're witnessing right now, is that people don't really understand enough about the history of the nation to know where the problem lies. The problem lies in the fact that we were warned by the first president that ever took office, ever, on his way out, that if we had a two-party system in place where you had two warring factions whose interests were only at stake in an election, then they would be more concerned about their winning than the actual protection and benefit of the nation. The man's name was George Washington, and I consider him to be a pretty smart fellow. He also warned us that if we elected immoral leaders who did not have any sort of compass internally to follow, they might care more about themselves than the nation. He also warned us against foreign alliances, arguably a good statement libertarians could embrace, but the reality is we're not the country that we were then, and we were a very weak young nation at the time, and so the idea of getting involved in a foreign entanglement was unreal. Now we are considered to be the world superpower, so it's a different scenario. But looking back at those first two pieces of advice, the problem, and that again 11 to 13-year-olds seem to understand pretty well, is that if you look at product placement or product competition like Coke versus Pepsi or McDonald's versus Burger King, you can easily spark a debate over which one is better. But think about that. They're so effective in their campaigning about getting us to decide which one is better. They've succeeded in getting us to forget that they're both really bad for us. Coke and Pepsi are terrible for you. McDonald's and Burger King are terrible for you. It used to be Marlboro versus Newport or Parliament. They're horrible for you. And the Republican and Democratic parties don't have our interest at heart anymore. People say, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. I say I'm an American. I'm an American. I'm unaffiliated. I care about the future of the nation for my family, for my children, for my students, and that's pretty much it. The Constitution set up a beautiful system. If you're not into history, maybe you just weren't as a kid. Try again now. It's really so smart the way it was set up. Where we were coming from with the tyranny of having a monarch and a parliament that was abusing what we as Englishmen felt were our rights, to what we came through the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution, a system that recognized that we needed a government, but that so distrusted the notion of government that it chopped it up into three separate pieces, three separate branches. And again, this is not an American idea. I mean, comes from the Enlightenment. We have Locke, we have Montesquieu, who advised us to do this, and we follow the advice to our credit. So we chop the government up into three pieces and we set them against each other and we give them checks and balances over another and say, okay, you have this power, but you get to tell them not to do that, and you get to tell them not to do that. Like a three-legged race, and everyone has veto power over everyone else. And the idea was, as I tell my guys all the time, when your parents are fighting, they leave you alone. You can get away with watching as much TV as you want. So we figured if the branches of government were fighting, they would never be able to team up against us, take away our freedoms, take away our rights. And to ensure that, we had the Bill of Rights, which was like the leash, the dog collar around the neck of the vicious government that might come after us one day. And people say, oh, no, that never happens anymore. Okay, sure. Anyways, the two-party system's not been our only threat. I've been a long believer that we've become more of an oligarchy than a republic. We are a republic, not a democracy. We use democracy in our republic, our constitutional republic, our federal republic. But an oligarchy is a system where you have a handful of people, the elite, the learned, the wealthy. They don't always have to be those, but I mean, imagine a system where, you had Clinton Bush in one election and then Clinton Bush potentially in another election, but Clinton lost to Obama, so then Obama hired Clinton to work, and The other Bush hired the Rumsfeld who was with the prior Bush. I mean, this is pretty oligarchy in nature to me. So, that being said, I've been telling my students for years that I would run for president in 2016 when I was finally allowed to because I wasn't old enough. And my mission would be pretty simple. My mission would be to reassert the fact that the presidency does not have the answers. And the presidency is not supposed to have the answers. The, the, the founding fathers distrusted a singular person for a reason. They'd been burned by a singular person. So, yeah, I'm the figurehead, and as the commander in chief, I have a huge burden on my shoulders. But the reality is, the day-to-day lawmaking of the United States is not supposed to come through executive fiat. The concept of executive actions, executive orders. I will sign a bill that Congress could pass that would ban. I'll sign a constitutional amendment that bans the use of executive action. Are you kidding me? Why would one person have the power that Congress should have? That flies in the face of the Constitution. Anyways, I digress. The point of my administration would be to give the power back to the Congress, to get the American people, who I'm talking to now, to remember that you have 535 members of Congress, 535 members in the Capitol building, representing every single different corner of the United States and our territories. Yet we continuously look to one man, the president, for answers. That doesn't make sense. Congress has the answers. We elect them on a more local level to serve our needs. I want to make sure Congress gets the power back. Congress should not be saying on the news, let's see what the president comes up with. The president should say, let's see what bills the Congress passes. The president has some veto power in there, sure, but it should be the end of the process, not the beginning. Congress needs to take the power back, and if they won't, I think I could make them. I could start a fight or something, I don't know, but if I did something to reestablish the three-branch system, we don't want to get rid of that. It makes too much sense. And the two-party system with Republicans and Democrats gets rid of it. It gets rid of it by saying, I have a Republican president and a Republican Congress, and so now they work together. And they pass things, or they create things, or they do things, and that's not three branches, that's two branches. Or imagine if they're picking a Supreme Court justice, and it's a Democratic president and a Democratic Congress, and they pick a left-leaning Supreme Court justice. That's not the way it's supposed to happen. Your Supreme Court justice should be picked on their merit of their constitutional interpretations. Are they going to be fair-minded people? Do they understand the Constitution? I love split government. I love when it's a Republican in charge and Democratic Congress, or a Democrat in charge and Republican Congress, because almost nothing gets done, and if it does, it probably is worthwhile, which is the idea behind the Constitution, the three branches of government, the separation of powers in the first place. Again, thank you to Locke and Montesquieu. The Schoenberg 2016 candidacy is underway. I don't have the money to advertise. I'm wondering if we can't rewrite the election process. Let's just do a YouTube campaign. I told my students I would just launch a YouTube campaign and sitting on my couch eating cereal. I'm all done with my Apple Jacks. So that being said, my name is Steve Schoenberg, SteveSchoenberg. I live in New Fairfield, Connecticut. You could write me in. We could take the power back from the two-party system that's been monopolizing it for so long. Congress won't know what to do with itself, so they'll start making laws again, I guess. What is my agenda as president? Foreign policy, all that. I can get into that on later days, but in a nutshell, day one, get Congress to stop pretending like they're not the most important branch. They really should start acting like that. I'll back them up on that. And not give them the power, but encourage them to take back what's theirs. Two, cancer. We're done with that. People, no, you can't. That's crazy. You're just talking. Come on. We've been to the moon. We got a robot on Mars sending us back soil sample textures. We got laser beams and Iron Man suits. Don't tell me we can't cure. No, no. Manhattan Project for cancer. We're all done with that. I know too many cancer survivors. I actually had cancer. I had a melanoma on my nose. That's why it's a little funky looking. We're done with this stuff. And then, yeah, foreign policy. Teddy Roosevelt, big stick kind of fan. Peace through strength. I'm not a warmonger. I like FDR's quote, I have seen war and I hate war. I haven't seen war, but I've grown up and I have kids, and I don't want to send anyone's kids or kids into harm's way when we don't have to. But that being said, I have opinions. And you see these politicians on stage, and people say, what would you do against ISIS? What would you do? And they say, well. I would ask Congress for a declaration of war. There you go. They don't have to give it to me, but they represent the American people, and that's their choice. But I'm not going to come home and look at my kid's face at night and understand that other people around the world are having their kids massacred for their beliefs. The United States is the nation of good. We've been the nation, and I know we have our flaws and people can argue them, but come on, how many other nations throughout history go to war and then go home after? Maybe we set up a military base, but we don't take over. We don't steal resources. We don't take jewels and we go home. We just want people to treat each other nicely and spread freedom and democracy. People say, "What do you want to do about ISIS?" I want to exterminate them. That's not okay. We can't have that in a textbook, that we did nothing while people were being murdered in ways that are too horrible to repeat because I don't know who's going to be watching this. So, again, that's my opinion, but I don't think I have the power to do that. The Congress has the power to declare war. I can only ask. Anyways, again, in future dates, I can release more information about my views. I don't know if I'll have Captain or Apple Jacks at the time. I might switch to my Cocoa Puffs, or if I'm feeling a little healthy, my Quaker Oat Squares. But we can call them cereal side chats. FDR had the fireside chats. I can have some cereal side chats. Um, and I just hope you'll support the movement. And I think could happen. I mean, these young hip people, these millennial style people, do you like to make things go viral? Make this go viral. There's no reason why an election can't be won this way. There's no reason why you can't take back what's ours. I'm not going to get on a debate stage against Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or Ted Cruz. Are you kidding me? They're politicians. I can't lie that well. Ask my wife. I lie whenever I laugh whenever I lie. She asks me something, I try to get away with something else, I start giggling. I'm not going to get into a verbal confrontation with somebody who's made a living out of telling people things they know will probably never happen. So this is my platform. I'm advocating on behalf of the American people. I'm advocating that my job would be to reduce the role and the impact of the office of the President of the United States. I want to be kind of like Silent Cal, good old Calvin Coolidge. I mean, his policies aside, but the way he handled his office. He's meant to be seen, not really heard. So when the nation needs the president, I would be there. I'm not going on talk shows. I'm not going to do silly things. I mean, it's the hardest job technically in the world except for being a mom, so it's going to take all of my time. And I promise you that no decisions I'd make as president would be made lightly. I think the country needs to be in better shape every day than the day it was before. I'm not going to saddle my children with the debt that our generation is wrapping up, so we need to figure that out. How do you do that? Taxes, cut programs. How about common sense? If one side says taxes cutting is going to work and the other side says, well, you have to cut programs to make it work, or raise taxes and cut programs. Listen, if you don't want to do one and you don't want to do the other, why don't we do them both a little bit? And that way it doesn't hurt as much. This is common sense, people. And I'm looking for the common sense people of America to join me. So come back to this channel periodically. I'll update it. Let me know how you like things. And hopefully, I mean, can you imagine if we do this? Can you imagine if we could win the presidency for the normal people, the people who want to just have things the way they should be, where their nation looks out for them, where we don't have this crazy situation where people are abusing their power, and we have a government that fights for what it should be fighting for. Things like freedom throughout the world, things like making sure people aren't diving in a dumpster looking for a peach pit while other people are sitting on one of their 4 yachts. I mean, not that I want to take away people's private property, but we have to certainly address the inequality that's going on in the world today, in this country especially. So that's it for now. Of course, God bless you and God bless America, and I look forward to having your support. Peace out, Cub Scouts.